Welcome, everybody. We're now talking about the Lakehouse of Oakland, which is a CBD located asset that we're very proud of. And I wanted to introduce our panel here, which is our distinguished guests. We have executives from our RedSwan team. First, Everett Gong, who's the Director of Digital Asset Operations. And then we have Simon Herman, who's a newly appointed Director of Sales. Myself, founder and CEO, and all the way from Denmark, we have our partner and long-term partner, Claus Skaaning of Digishares. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first, let's just talk a little about what's new with RedSwan. I get a lot of emails. People want to know what's going on. I haven't done a lot of interviews just because I've been trying to focus on our task at hand, but there are a lot of things happening. Just recently, in the past 4 weeks, there were 3 conferences that were centered around digital assets. The first was a digital asset conference in Austin that was focused on real estate digitization. And then secondly, there was another conference in Austin that was focused on the digital asset in general. So people who are digitizing funds and all types of digital assets, and all the vendors that support the industry were there. Very, very exciting to see people that we've been talking to for years come to Austin face to face. And then last week, which is the final conference, was a Texas blockchain summit. And I think Texas is becoming the capital for blockchain in the United States. The legislators there are meeting with SEC officials and trying to come up with regulations that can make it much easier to do business on blockchain in Texas. A lot of miners moving to Texas to do mining after leaving from China. So that was very exciting to see. We are continuously growing and trying to maintain our market leading position. I think hands down, we were able to identify that we are the largest platform of digital real estate assets, commercial assets, represented by individual sponsors. And we're going to continue to grow that platform, and we're very proud of that. Here are the recently and newly appointed capital market sales team members led by Simon Herman. This is great for us because we now have the capability to really reach out and service clients, both on the property side for properties owners who want to put their properties on our platform and digitize their assets, as well as advising institutional advisors, capital investors, as well as advising high net worth individuals who want to buy shares in the properties that we're offering. So we welcome this team. We're excited for what they're bringing to the table. And I'm already seeing the phones ringing off the hook with projects that we're going to be putting on our platform. I want to also just touch on some of the highlights that we've achieved so far this year before we get into this. We've added to our tokenized platform. We have 2.5 billion in multifamily assets. We're going to be looking at hotels as well as office buildings in the months to come. We also established 2 discretionary digital asset funds for real estate, and that is one that's core assets, and the other one is for value-add assets. Total of both funds are $1.6 billion. And I'm really also happy that cash flow is starting to ring in. We've had revenue this year so far at $725,000. Hey, I'm happy because I know that their companies have raised 100 times of the capital that we've raised and don't even have this much revenue coming through the door. So our sales guys are really working hard to close deals out, and and also bring deals on, which is what distributes to our revenue. Also, one important fact is the membership growth. We have accredited investors on our platform, which are very keen on buying digital real estate. And year over year, we've seen 270% growth. Every day we're adding new members. And I think what's even more positive than that is that these investors are active on our site and are making bids on our projects. And so far, we look at the bids they're making and logging on our platform as an indication of purchasing power. And so we add up all the bids that we've had so far on the assets that are on our platform. We have about $270 million worth of purchasing power with RedSwan, which I think is wonderful. And we definitely want to keep growing this number so we can be more effective to take care of our clients and building owners in the future. Also, we have been approved by the SEC for Reg CF fundraise. We're now raising $5 million led by Seed Invest. They're doing a great job for us, and I think that that's going to be successful. This will run through probably the end of the year, and we'll then close that out. Also, we are going to be ringing the bell in November. Our second tokenized project will be closing. All the funds have been raised and been delivered to our sponsor, and we're just waiting for the HUD loan to close, but this will be our second tokenized project. I don't know if anyone else has been able to do that yet, but we're very happy that we can announce that we are closing a second project. Also, we have 2 new partnerships that we've signed on, which has given us more international reach. For the continent of Africa, we have a major sponsor and a platform being established there, as well as Asia. We have centered around Vietnam. We have a very, very strong strategic partner coming on board, which we'll do a press release on. So a lot of wonderful things happening in the business, but the reason why we're here today is to close out Lakehouse Oakland, which is our fabulous project, type 1 construction, located on the beautiful Lake Merritt of Oakland. I used to live in that marketplace, know a lot about the area, but because our distinguished director of sales is here and also lives in that area, I would like for Simon to tell us a little about Lakehouse. Simon, why don't you give us a little bit of introduction on why Lakehouse is so special?
Yeah, going right into the slide, I think the famous phrase of location, location, location. As you could see by the aerial that we have here, Oakland is a very, if you don't know the area, it's a very unique and special city in the Bay Area because of its easy access to San Francisco, San Jose, Silicon Valley, which the amount of employers, and obviously, we're famous for tech and biotech and everything else. So Oakland is strategically placed. It's really got a lot of attention from institutional investors over the past couple of years, building other multifamily projects. The city's really gone through a lot of growth. The restaurants, the retail, everything that's really being built there. But, we have major REITs coming into the market, Essex, Invesco, Berkshire, all really planting a flag in Oakland and realizing how special that is. So I think just from that aerial that you're seeing there and the easy access to some pretty keen parts of the world is pretty fantastic. So this project in particular is any high rise being built in the Bay Area, but specifically Oakland, is pretty unique in itself just because of the amount of time it takes to get a project approved and to go vertical. And it's different. It's similar to Manhattan or Washington, D.C., where it can take 5, 6, 7 years just to get the paperwork approved to go and build a project, which as an investor, as a developer, it's frustrating. As an investor, it's fantastic because you know that the competing product coming online is not going to be overwhelming, where your vacancy is in danger of increasing. So it creates a real stable asset and makes housing very, very valuable. We see typically in the Bay Area a large amount of appreciation on projects comparatively to the rest of the United States. So this one is ready to build, which means the construction drawings are done, the financing is in place. So as an investor coming in, we know that we're going to be going vertical in a very short period of time, which means we're getting closer to lease up and getting the cash flow and our investors' money back in their pocket. So, and the returns are very strong. And I would say the conservative 17% rent growth that you're seeing there on the chart, we as a Bay Area got affected by COVID, I think, like everybody in the United States. And developers and institutional investors are pouring back in because they know that this market, with the amount of population and the jobs that we have here, are just going to have a fantastic rebound. It's already one of the most expensive rental markets in the United States. that trend will continue. But the rent growth and the projections that we see in the marketplace are just for really healthy, steady growth over the years. And by the time this project comes out to market, because we did have a number of projects get stalled during COVID, this is going to be a great time when it comes out in terms of capturing new leases and being really a shining star. As you can see again by the map there, it's right on the lake, which is a 2-mile loop, fully lit, incredibly active on the weekends. And it's being built by, one of the stronger developers in the Bay Area, which is Urban Core. They've worked on 32 different projects, either completed or in progress, 3,000 units. They're getting close to, I think with this project, there'll be over $1 billion of constructed properties over the years. They've been in the market for 25 plus years, very deep ties to the city, long-term Oakland developer. So we just have a really nice, clean property, 270 units, right on the lake in a great rental market. So it's overall, it's an A+ asset for our investors.
Yeah, I just want to say I love this view. I lived in the same market area, and I have to tell you that residents of this market fight over this multi-million-dollar view. And so when you can have a view like this, people are paying millions of dollars for residences to have views of 4 or 5 bridges in the Bay Area. That's very unique.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
One of the benefits, another unique benefit of this asset is that it is in an opportunity zone. And if you're not familiar with that, the big, huge advantage comparatively to other assets is if you hold your tokens and your equity for over 10 years, all your capital gains will be tax-free, which is incredibly unique for investments and capital gains in the history of the United States. So that's never been an IRS and federal tax law that we've seen before. So there's some additional benefits if you are moving from selling crypto and have gains or selling stock and have gains. There is a reduction in the amount of gains you will pay on what you've already earned. If you have $1 million of gains, you'll get a 10% reduction in what you're going to be taxed on. So there's that benefit. And then again, down the road, if you hold for 10 years past and you fit all the criteria, all your gains are going to be tax-free. So I think if you're a long-term asset holder in this every year past 10 years, it's a pretty exciting process to be involved if you think 20, 25 years down the road where you have a massive amount of gains and can walk away and not have to pay the IRS.
That's awesome. I just also want to add here that part of the reason why that we're making this presentation is because we're really trying to point our purchasing power of our members to look at this asset. There's $22 million remaining that needs to be raised. And if we can influence our investors to take a look at this quality asset, I think we can definitely achieve that goal. But in order to talk about the process, because a lot of our members are both Reg D and Reg S, and are asking how easy it would be to go through this transaction in terms of paying and receiving your digital shares. I would like for Everett to discuss this because he is the master when it comes to the digital asset operations and handling all of our accredited investors. So Everett, please, can you explain this process so that everyone listening can understand?
Sure. Next slide. Thank you. Thanks, Ed. So really, the closeout process is pretty simple and straightforward. So before you invest in your very first deal, just like if you were to open up a bank account or a stock brokerage account, there is an initial onboarding process where you have to provide detailed contact information, upload your ID, either a passport or driver's license, and then in addition, just answer a very short questionnaire where we can sort of get to know you better as an investor, what your interests are, your criteria, and as well as your background. After we see that application go through, you will basically get a separate email from either myself or somebody on my team to basically prompt you to go through our typical KYC and AML check. That's very important to do because if you do not go through that workflow, then we cannot accept your full application, and we cannot, accept any orders from you as well. But once you do pass that check, you just submit an order, and then that's followed by a e-signing of the purchase agreement, and as well as a general advisory agreement stating that RedSwan will be your advisor. And then finally, the last step is just to remit payment for your tokens. Next slide, Ed. So I may have spoken to some of you who are on this call today. So if in terms of our investor base, if you are a US investor, i.e. you are a US citizen or a resident of the United States, you do have to be considered accredited to invest in any RedSwan deal. There's 3 criteria you have to pass, or one of 3 that you have to pass in order to be considered accredited. So the income test is basically that you personally make 200,000 or greater income in the last 2 years, and you expect to make basically that same amount going forward, then you're considered accredited. Or you can combine your income with that of the spouse, in which case the threshold is 300,000. In terms of the net worth test, if you choose to go with that criteria, then it's basically $1 million or greater liquid net worth outside of your main residence. And then finally, a new criteria that the U.S. government approved just late last year is if you work in the financial services industry and you possess an unexpired Series 7, 65, or 82 FINRA license, then you are also considered accredited regardless of what your actual income or net worth is. So that's been a very helpful new addition that came in last year. Next slide. We get a lot of questions about payments. So, obviously, do we accept traditional fiat US dollars? Whenever, once you sign your subscription agreement on our issuance rails, the bank account information is easily viewable. So you just send ACH or wire to that account, to that RedSwan account. However, for those who are more technically or crypto inclined, we also do accept cryptocurrency payments as well. Right now, the main ones we accept are just USD pegged stable coins like USDC. However, as part of a new promotion that you probably saw recently, for limited time, we are accepting Dogecoin for 2 of our assets, mainly Lakehouse, which is our focus today, as well as another asset that we have in our marketplace called Apollo Apartments. One thing just to note is that if you do submit crypto, the only thing we ask of you as the investors that you send us a screenshot of the sending address and the amount of crypto coins you are sending, so that we can then cross-reference and confirm receipt of those coins on our end. Finally, just the last slide here for myself. Next slide, Ed. In terms of just the post-investment services, so once deal is closed and you're assigned the tokens, we do handle all the dividend distributions. Most of the sponsors probably do annual, although some sponsors may do quarterly. And similar to the investment side, in terms of the payout side, we default is US dollar fiat, but if you choose to, if you do want to receive your dividends in a USD stablecoin, we can accommodate those by request as well. We also handle the quarterly financial updates from the sponsors and any communications they want to share. And we also do provide a quarterly NAV snapshot for the underlying asset. Once a year around tax time, we do the K1 distributions and handle any other communications. And then also, over time, as we onboard new assets onto our marketplace, again, we are an RIA, so we will provide recommendations and ideas of how you might be able to rebalance your CRE portfolio, depending on what your interest and criteria are. So again, something else that we provide. That's it for me.
Thank you, Everett. Appreciate that update, and I hope that was informative, but very Q&A questions, so we'll hold for that at the end of this presentation. Now I want to just welcome esteemed guest, Claus Skaaning from Digishares. Claus and I go back, we've had a relationship now for 3 years. We've came together because we're both in this industry and have a lot of passion for providing quality service to investors in this space. And we recognize their technology of being extremely efficient because we want to have, ultimate customer service experience, which is seamless in terms of processing investment shares through our international Reg S channel. So Klaus, can you please explain to the audience how Digishares works with RedSwan to process Reg S payment or Reg S processing of digital shares, as well as the secondary liquidity level when they want to exit their position?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me here. It's a great pleasure to be on a call with one of the pioneers in the space and also one of the few companies actually doing something and being successful with it. My name is Klaus. I'm the CEO of Digishares. I've been in this space for quite a while now. I'm heading up Digishares. We are basically a technology provider. We provide a solution for real estate tokenization that combines functionality for crowdfunding or financing, for asset management or corporate management, and also for trading. And we are specifically working with RedSwan and have been for a while now on the Reg S, so international investors into RedSwan's projects. We have around 35 clients totally, and offices in Denmark and in the US. So in relation to Reg S, this is a special form of capital raise that can be used in the US, but both by US and non-US companies, with a target to attract non-US investors, non-US capital investment into your projects. The main difference between Reg S and Reg D, which is normally used, is that under Reg S you can participate in the investments if you are not accredited. So anyone can participate, even retail investors. There's no limit, no requirement for earnings or possessions or anything like that. You can participate if you are living outside the US. So the way that we typically handle it internally in the system is that the tokens for Reg D and Reg S have to be kept separate. So it's typically two different share classes that are tokenized, or it's represented that way at least. It's necessary to do it that way because there's a difference in the lockup period that is required. For Reg D, for US investors, there's typically a lockup period of 1 year. But for Reg S, there's no lockup period. They are able to trade immediately, actually, after having completed the investment. So that's controlled by the tokenization and the smart contracts in the system, that no trading between those two groups can occur, at least until after 1 year. Otherwise, the process is pretty much the same. The onboarding process is similar. Reg S investors have to undergo a KYC process, as explained by Everett, and they don't have to they don't have to document accreditation status because that is not required, but they still have to do KYC and they have to sign a subscription form to participate. In the Reg S part of the system, it's possible to trade. We provide a peer-to-peer trading platform that is like a bulletin board where the investors can issue buy and sell orders and then negotiate price and settle the trade directly in a peer-to-peer fashion. It's based on DEX technology, decentralized exchange technology, and it uses smart contracts to facilitate what is called an atomic swap, where you basically the trade basically settles both directions at once. So the payment goes across at the same time as the real estate backed tokens. You settle both directions, or you settle none of them. So there's no counterparty risk, and it's an extremely safe way to trade. And it's facilitated by the platform. So investors in the Reg S part of the system will be able to log into their investor dashboard and see their portfolio, properties they have invested into, information about these, the PPMs and so on, current value of their investment and so on. And they will also be able to see contracts that have been signed, so the legal relationship between themselves and RedSwan. as well as the ability to trade. So they can see buy and sell orders currently available in the bulletin board trading system, and they can react to that if they like. They can create their own buy and sell orders and participate in the trade. So that's basically what I want to say.
That was very, very helpful. I'd like you to explain something though. You know, you and I have been doing this for a while, and you know how complicated it has been for foreign investors to invest their cash, fiat cash, into U.S. Assets. And please explain the difference of how utilizing either digital shares or cash going to digital shares or cryptocurrency going to digital shares makes it much easier for them to get in and also get out of real estate investments.
Yeah, it's a big question actually. So if you are processing fiat, I would say if you pay with fiat into a system such as ours, then it has to be either like a manual process or it has to be through a bank integration. So it's a little bit more complicated to arrange. Whereas if you work with crypto, if you pay with crypto like a stable coin like USDC, we can actually facilitate all the processes directly within the system, and we can automate the processes also to a great degree. So it's possible to automate the purchase process, the dividend payout process, and the trading process, and sort of handle it completely within the system. Whereas if there is a fiat element, if there is the ability for the investors to pay in fiat, then it's normally sort of like a manual process into a bank account that is outside the system, and then you could say a manual modification of wallet balance and transfer of shares and so on. So it's the old-fashioned way to do it. Of course, it's possible to integrate with a bank and get some of the same behavior, but it's difficult to, I would say, automate it in a similar fashion.
Yeah, we experienced many investors in Asia who were trying to buy assets when I was at Cushman & Wakefield, and they would have to, first of all, accumulate a lot of assets, the capital in their bank account in Asia, and then put it into an escrow, and then wire the escrow funds in increments of $50 million over to the United States to make those investments. And then once that investment was made, now as a block of investors, they're kind of stuck in that asset, and then they have no liquidity to get out until that U.S. sponsor sells the asset. Now what they're using with digital platform, they could, whether it be converting their wire into a digital asset or using cryptocurrency, as you said, they no longer have to wait to consolidate all this capital. Each investor can send over their capital through our facility, buy their shares, and then once they own those shares, if they decide they want to sell, they can just put a sell order in and put their allocation on the market for sale just that quickly. So no longer waiting, no longer going through government approval. I think it's a very, very easy process today, thanks to you guys and us. Well, anyway, I appreciate that, Klaus. I want to just come back to this is the final call for the Lakehouse Oakland. Beautiful asset. We hope that you guys have appreciated the information we shared today, and that you will now take a good look at this asset and be part of the capital stack along with other institutional investors. Just talk a little bit about other projects that are coming down the pipeline. We're working on quite a bit. We have a high-rise development working out here in Houston, which we're extremely excited about. Also, another mid-high-rise development in downtown San Francisco that we'll be bringing online shortly. And then finally, a mixed-use development of hospitality and residential in downtown San Diego. So lots of quality properties. These are just a few of the ones that we're highlighting, but there are lots of properties that are coming on board. And so we hope that you guys stay connected with us at RedSwan. I'm going to open this up for some questions now. This Q&A, I see the first question that has popped up, and it's basically an investor asking if this is for accredited investors only. Everett, why don't we take that question?
Yeah. So basically, if you are, as I mentioned, if you are a U.S. Citizen or resident, you have to be considered accredited. Again, there was it's an OR test. So if you meet an income test or a net worth test or you have one of those securities licenses, then you're considered accredited. In terms of just, even though the person didn't ask directly, I mean, I think it's worth just being clear about this, and Klaus did mention it as well. If you are outside the U.S., then you just have to pass the KYC, an AML check, and you can invest. There are no net worth, income, or licensing requirements that you need to meet to invest in a RedSwan deal if you're outside the United States.
Thanks, Everett. Let me just say this before we go into the other questions. Just for those who are participating, and there are a number of you, if you have a Q&A question, just go to the top or the bottom of your screen and you see Q&A, and you can type your question in, and that way we can ask the panel your question to be answered. Thank you. Go ahead.
So we had anonymous attendee send in a question. Basically, what are the immediate benefits of buying digital real estate? So maybe I'll start answering, and Ed and Simon, maybe you can jump in as well. I mean, really, the two big benefits that we see are the idea of like fractionalization and liquidity. So by tokenizing real world assets like real estate, you can basically carve up the equity stack into smaller slices, and make high quality real estate affordable to smaller investors. As you've all seen on our marketplace, the entry price for all of our deals is just $1,000. Also, in terms of the liquidity, right? Now that the equity real estate share is represented as a digital token, well, then that means that it makes it easier to actually trade that asset. And as you know, historically, real estate is a very illiquid asset, and the whole idea of tokenization is to actually bring the possibility of 24/7 liquidity to an asset that historically has been contained a lot of frictions when you're trying to trade it. Finally, another benefit I'll throw in there as well is the fact that we have to remember is that when you're buying the equity real estate shares in any of our single assets, right? You're essentially buying into a partnership that owns that single building. So when you get your K1 every year, you're going to get the allocation of that asset's depreciation expense. And so if you've got, like, for example, gains that you've or income you generate from other investments, that allocated depreciation is effectively something that can be deducted against those gains, saving you in taxes.
Thanks, Everett. There's another question here asking about what's the risk of your development projects not getting completed? Simon, you're probably an expert there since you work with a lot of the financial institutions that are funding these development projects. You want to answer that one?
Yeah, in where this asset is in its life cycle, there's always a risk, of any property. Even if it's existing, it could burn down, and there's insurance policies behind that. Where this asset is in its life cycle is that it's fully entitled. Construction drawings are done. The main loan, the financing is complete. Is that the easy part, which seems weird, is to actually build the project when you're in the Bay Area. So in terms of the risk, there's always a risk. But we are in a very safe space that this project will get built at some point because of the money, the insurance is behind it, and your developer, Core, has been working on this for 7 years or so. So I hope that answers the question. But this is a very far along, we'd say, safe development deal in where it is in its life cycle.
Yeah, I will add on that as well, Simon, because you're absolutely right that this is far along and very safe. With the institutions that are behind it are very experienced, but typically the lenders require completion insurance as well for the construction developer. So they have a policy in place to make sure that the projects is completed to spec. So that the bank usually requires that as well to make sure it gets done.
Correct.
Everett, any other questions?
So another question came in is, are all investors tokenized, and how does secondary sale work? Who can buy? Can institutions buy tokens? Yes. So, our platform is 100% digital real estate. When you become an investor in any deal, you do have digital tokens. In terms of the secondary sale, it's a basically online quotation bureau system that Klaus talked about. So in the case of, say, U.S. investor, once your mandated holding period is up, then you can post your tokens for sale, invite bids for someone to take those tokens off your hands, allowing you to monetize your or liquidate your investment. In terms of institutions, yes, I mean, we welcome, even though our entry price is very low, allowing, international retail investors and accredited investors, we do allow institutions to participate in our deals. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, we do have, family offices and RIAs and professional real estate investors among, our registered users. So absolutely, if you represent an investing entity such as a hedge fund or family office or RIA or a REIT, you're welcome to invest in any of our deals. Let's see here.
Let me take this next one here while you're looking at the questions. There's one just asking if this is our first project, Lakehouse. No, this is not our first project. We have over 16 projects that have been tokenized that are on the platform right now. This is one of the 16. We have sold one completely, which is a Houston asset called Nottingham. That was our first actually closed transaction. And we just mentioned that we're closing a second transaction, which is a development project in Dallas, Texas. So the other projects are still on our platform and people are expressing interest. Once we get to at least 75% of capitalization, then we start work towards closing those assets out. Any other questions?
Yeah, let's keep going here. So another question came in: is tokenization legal? What SEC approvals did RedSwan take? So basically, the SEC recognized security token offerings in 2018. And which is actually the year that our company was founded. In terms of other legal things we've adopted, again, just really it's just the Reg D, accredited investor exemption. And so as long as you're a accredited investor here in the US, you can invest in our deals. Is there a Dropbox or file for added info for this Lakehouse investment? Well, if you're registered on our website, you should be able to browse all of our deals. Behind each tombstone listing, we have all the information about the asset as well as confidential reports that you can sign for. So I'll just encourage you, if you haven't actually created an account, to do so at redswan.io, and then you can easily find all additional details about the Lakehouse asset in our marketplace. So we have actually a question about the asset itself. So what kind of exit cap rates are projected? What are the debt terms? And rent estimates? Maybe Ed and Simon maybe can answer.
Yeah, the loan that's in place that's secured is a HUD loan. It's a 221D4, which is a unique loan because it's a construction loan that transfers into a permanent loan. And it's a 40-year self-amortizing loan option. So it's a very safe way to go about building a project and getting construction financing. Most projects get the construction financing, build the project, start to lease it, and then they have to go back to the market and get permanent financing put in place, which then you're at the risk of the interest rate market at that time. So this is a locked in interest rate of 3.95%. It's about $190 million loans. It's about a 62% loan to value or loan to cost on the project. So right, again, just a really nice, clean, safe loan that we know exactly how it's going to play out long term for the investment, which I think is great for this type of deal because it is an opportunity zone asset. And then the exit cap rate that we're looking at is a 4.5% at the 10th year, which would put the asset's value at about $322 million. Right now in the market, if we were to sell a Class A 200 unit tower in Oakland, the cap rates are probably around 3.5%, if not 3.25%. So using a 4.5 cap rate on your exit in year 10, I think is very safe and conservative, and that's what we're projecting, the longer term returns off of. So. And then the rent projections are based on third-party groups that have done a lot of research. There's a group called the Concord Group that does a lot of reports for hedge funds and pension funds, insurance companies. And so they've done a lot of reporting and projections on the rents. And they fall in line with not too much forward looking kind of rent growth that's off of today's values. So we're in the $4.50 kind of range for price per square foot.
Great, thank you. Another question here. I'm an international investor. Can we invest via Bitcoin or other crypto, or do you require standard wire transfer? As we mentioned, we do accept cryptos, specifically US dollar pegged stable coins, and then specifically for Lakehouse, as part of a special promotion, we are accepting Dogecoin as well.
Dogecoin or Dogecoin, however you want to say it. Let me take this next question, because it seems like this investor is kind of looking at the far long-term benefits of buying digital assets, and how does DeFi Option work? Where you can buy. You can loan or borrow crypto through your RedSwan digital security. So I think what he's asking here is that when you're buying shares in one of our projects, you're buying equity in that real estate, and that equity is net of the debt. So basically, you have an unencumbered asset that's sitting in your wallet, and you can now use that unencumbered asset and go to some digital lending institutions who will let you borrow off of the value of that asset, so you can participate in DeFi. So basically, we're creating content that could be leveraged for other value. I won't go into the DeFi aspect of it right now, but that is the basic concept, that you're buying an unlevered asset that you can now put in your wallet and put leverage on top of with certain financial institutions that are excited about DeFi. One other question I'm going to take here, I see is the easy one, is can you tell us how the previous tokenized deals are doing? We've tokenized quite a few projects, and we've given our audience a lot of options in which projects to look at. They are filling up. Some are 25%, some are above 75%. We're trying to get them all above 75% to close, but it sometimes takes time, so we'll hold them open until we have that trigger point where we can close an asset out. But as we mentioned earlier, one of our assets closed earlier this year. A second asset is closing next month. And we have a few that are in a very high percentile in terms of allocation. Looks like they may be closing hopefully before the end of the year. Any other questions there, Everett?
Yeah, just in terms of just a housekeeping item, this event is recorded, and we will make it available afterwards on our YouTube channel. So for those of you who dialed in a little bit late, you can always watch the replay there. Let's see here. So another question here is, if I don't want to hold the crypto, is there a custody setup or any way that I don't need it? So basically, the way it works is, once a deal closes, we basically safeguard the tokens on behalf of the investor in the omnibus account, and we just manage the cap table. So that's how that works. Another question is can you 1031 exchange into this asset? How does that work? Maybe Ed or Simon?
Simon, you want to try that? I mean, I think 1031 exchange is more for US, right? So Simon, you may not have a comment on that. Can you 1031 exchange this asset? How does it work? Well, we've been told from our advisors, but you should always seek your own legal and accounting advice because we're not the professionals in that area. But 1031 exchange, if you're moving from like kind of qualities, if you're selling an LP interest in a piece of real estate and acquiring another LP interest in real estate that's digitized, I believe that you could do a 1031 exchange from the previous into the new. You're just holding it in a digital form. Eventually, all real estate assets would be in digital form, just like many forms of currency would be in digital form. So I would imagine that would be cleared by the IRS. But you should definitely check with your legal advisor and your CPA.
And your exchange accommodator as well. But we can work with them and make sure that we're doing our part to fulfill all your 1031 requirements.
Okay. Another question. So on which network is RedSwan our tokens minted on? It's basically it's Ethereum network. We use the ERC 1400 protocol. Will RedSwan token be listed on other crypto exchanges, and how does swapping stablecoin to RedSwan tokens work? Does one need to swap through Uniswap? So I think this basically gets to the payment. So it's not really, so in terms of our security token offerings that we're talking about right now, it's not really through a DEX as you might think of it. Basically, the tender, the payment of the tokens can be done again either fiat or USD stablecoin. So you basically send the coin over, and then once we account for that, then we just allocate. We confirm your investment and allocate the tokens to you. So that's how that works. So we had I think this also another question here is, I guess, what's the exit strategy for the investor? I guess that maybe speaks to, I guess, what the underlying sponsor is going to do with the property once it's stabilized. Maybe Simon, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, for one, you're the investor, so regardless of what, that's the beauty of tokenization is regardless of what the sponsor and developer decide to do, you can exit really through the secondary market whenever you choose to liquidate your asset. So that's very different comparatively to what other crowdfunding platforms or other projects that you might have invested in the past, where you are tied to basically the sponsor, the GP's decision of what they want to do and when they want to do it. Because this is an opportunity zone deal and we've secured the finance, or they've secured the financing in essence for 40 years, lock rate self-advertising loan. I believe most of the investors involved are going to be looking to hold past 10 years so they can take advantage of getting their capital gains tax-free because of the opportunity zone scenario. But there's a couple different players involved in the capital stack, and they all might decide to move a little different than each other. So, and Ed, I don't know if you have any other insight into that from Urban Core.
Yeah, I mean, the exciting part about digital assets is that you control your investment. You're buying something that has a yield attached to it, whether it be a dividend that they're promising to pay annually or a yield that they're going to expect to achieve over a period of time. The beautiful part is that you can now be able to exit whenever you feel that you've achieved the liquidity that you're looking for and the yield you're looking for. Also, you can trade. I mean, once you see you have a large position in a particular property, you can trade that share. And if you now can trade it with a gain and possibly buy it back later and trade it again for another gain, this allows you to increase your overall average yield on the asset if you're good at it. I'm not saying that's something you need to do, but just like you see people who are buying and selling cryptocurrencies, they're very good at trading. Pretty soon you'll see a lot of people trading digital real estate assets as well. I see one other question here that I'm going to address, which is I see on Seed Invest, and they want to thank this investor. It says they invested through Seed Invest, and where did the money go? Which asset did the money go to through Seed Invest? And first of all, thank you for making an investment through Seed Invest. That is actually making an investment directly into our RedSwan capital account, to help us grow our business so we can bring you more fantastic opportunities. And we are doing a lot to make that happen. But your investment has gone into the capital of RedSwan to build our company as opposed to into a direct investment on behalf of our sponsors. So thank you very much. And hopefully more of that will come. Is there another question there, Everett?
Yeah, so a couple more questions. So will there be any tax implication for international investors when dividends are being paid? I guess I would say there, similar to what we said earlier, is that if you're outside the U.S. and you receive dividends, I mean, I would just encourage you to consult with your local accountants or attorneys on the tax treatment of that. Another question is coming in here is still not clear how market is created around the tokens. Help me understand options around liquidity. So again, so we have a bulletin board set up within the RedSwan environment that allows you to trade, put your tokens up for sale, and then basically registered users of RedSwan can just come in and see your posting, and if they're interested in that asset, they can put in a bid for it, and then you can sell your investment that way. There are our platform also can connect to digital asset exchanges. A lot of ATSs out there now, so that's another way that secondary market liquidity can be achieved.
Here's a question that is for Klaus: is how does a dashboard work so that we can understand what we have purchased, and if we want to sell using your peer-to-peer functionality you mentioned, how will we do that, and how long would it take for that transaction to get done?
Well, in the investor dashboard, you can see the different tokens that you own in different projects or properties, and you can, for each of those holdings that you have, you can offer them for sale on the bulletin board if you like. So you can basically create a sell order, specify the number of tokens you want to sell and the price, submit it, and it will be visible to any other investor within that property, or any other investor that's registered, you could say, within that property to potentially buy tokens. And it depends on the interest, of course, from the other parties, how fast the trade can go through and can be processed, and of course on the price that you have set. But once there is a buyer that is interested to buy the tokens and negotiate a price, the actual settlement is extremely fast. It's a few seconds.
Hey, Klaus, I've got a question as well, because we've, like I said, been doing this for a while. You're seeing a lot of customers that you're signing up who are looking to tokenize assets. What do you see in terms of the volume of real estate security tokens that are going to be coming to the market based on the clients you've signed up?
I think that first I would say that you're one of the leaders, definitely, both in volume and in time to market, right? I think most of the clients we see are smaller size, smaller assets, maybe in the 5, 10, 20 million range. Especially, I would say, outside the US, the assets are smaller. So you are in the lead.
But you see it growing, though, in terms of the number of clients coming to you to tokenize their own assets and to put their digital assets on the blockchain.
Yes, absolutely.
Someone's asking here, how can I learn more about Digishares?
Yeah, you can just Google us on the internet and reach out. We're easy to find.
Everett, you see any other questions there? I mean, we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the hour.
I think we have, we have about 5 minutes left. I think we can take a few more questions here. So it says, one question says, if an investor chooses to hold RedSwan digital token for several years, will dividend be compounded over time? So a couple of things there, I would say. Just to be clear, because I think some of our audience might think they're buying sort of a generic RedSwan token. Actually, for all of our deals, you're actually getting a security token that's specifically tied to that single property asset. So it's not a general token like a Bitcoin or Ethereum. It is a STO that's specifically tied to the asset. So that's number one. In terms of the dividends that are paid out every year, I mean, it just depends on the performance of the asset, right? So asset, collects rent and then has expenses, and then essentially that and debt service, and so then the remainder is what gets paid out to the equity holders. And so there's no sort of automatic really compounding, so to speak, per se. It just really depends on the performance of the asset that determines the annual cash flows you're going to get as the equity investor. I'll
take this last question. Then we can wrap it up. But this is, can an investor make future subsequent investments after close of the fundraising period? I believe they're speaking about our RedSwan's Reg CF fundraising, but I'm going to speak on both that or the capital for the Lakehouse Oakland project. As far as the RedSwan Reg CF fundraising, this is will be a final closing on that, and then we may have another round, which was after we've grown substantially. We'll probably have a Series B round, which be much larger raise, but probably at a higher level of evaluation. So this will be this raise we're doing right now for $5 million. Once it closes out, will be over. So all the benefits and the pricing of this will be over with. And then the next round that we do for capital raise, which will be our Series B, more than likely will be tokenized. We're going to tokenize our stock at that point, and we think the price point will be higher. So thank you for answering that question. If your question is pertaining to Lakehouse Oakland, and we'll be having a subsequent round of investments once that's closed out, the answer is no. This will be finalized. The project will be closed out. However, after the seasoning period for the Reg D investors, and they want to put their shares on the market for secondary trading, you can pick up shares that way. Or for the Reg S investors who buy into this asset and decide to sell, you should keep your eyes glued on our platform, because you can pick up shares in Lakehouse on the secondary market.
Maybe I'll just take one last question here. Somebody was curious, does RedSwan plan to be listed on the US SEC? So the SEC is just a securities regulator. So I guess the question is, are we going to be listed on a public stock exchange? Well, we are, I mean, that could be a possibility, several years down the road, but we are, still a private company. As I just mentioned, we have our crowdfunding round going on right now at Seed Invest. So we definitely encourage you to check that out, www.seedinvest.com/RedSwan. But I guess you never know. That could going public, fully public, that could be down the road. But certainly, it's still early and still early for that at our stage.
Well, thank you guys, this panel, for helping us with these questions and also presenting. We're always trying to be on the forefront of providing credible information to the digital audience out there that's interested in commercial real estate, whether it be institutional or private investors. And we're going to do this on a regular basis. There are a lot of questions that come through. A lot of institutions are calling, big corporations, and we think it's best to bring the information directly to you. We record all these sessions, so you'll have them. You can pull off our website on our YouTube site. So there's always that in case you missed it. But we'll be doing this on a regular basis as you showcase different projects, so you can have more in-depth view of the highlights of those assets. So thank you very much for your attendance. And don't forget to look at Lakehouse Oakland. Express your interest. We want to get this done. We know you have the ability to do it, and we think it's a fantastic asset that you should add to your portfolio of real estate. Thank you, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.